Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live and Emily Color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And welcome, ladies and gents. Tonight, it is not just any kind of special. No, it's a special filled with vampires. Yes, ladies and gents, it is the vampire special here tonight on Grande's Graveyard, and I hope you brought your stakes. I don't have any stakes on me, but I'll tell you what I do have. I do have a goddamn cross, all right? We got a fucking cross on Grande's Graveyard here tonight to keep the vampires away. And you know what else keeps the vampires away? My uncle taught me this lesson. My good Uncle Richie, he taught me this lesson, that the garlic keeps the vampires away. So I hope you all got your garlic, perhaps maybe a cross or two to stay safe from the vampiros. I don't know, but I just like to be extra safe here tonight. Yes, ladies and gents, tonight on Grande's Graveyard, we are talking all things vampire movies. I've got not one, not two, but three awesome killer freaking vampire movies. All of them foreign too. No American ones to speak of on this show here tonight. We've got, of course, first a Spanish and German co-production. This is Vampiros Lesbos from Jess Franco. Then this is a Spanish film, of course, starring the late Paul Nashcy, The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. And then finally, from our good buddies over at South Korea, this is Park Chan Wook's film, Thirst. So we've got three different vampire movies, three different countries, and absolutely zero regrets on Grande's Graveyard tonight. So I hope you all are ready and excited to get your vampires on. Mateo is here. Ciao, Grande. Thursday, Bloody Thursday. Happy Thursday, Bloody Thursday, my friend. And it wouldn't be a vampire show, a vampire special, without one of my all-time favorite vampire actresses, and one Soledad Miranda. So I'm rocking this shirt again. I actually wore it a couple weeks ago on the show. The Blood Queen shirt, yes, Soledad Miranda, 1943 to 1970. Unfortunately, she's a part of the infamous 27 Club alongside guys like Jim Morrison, who great talents that just died at the super young age of 27, which is a shame. And we'll talk about Soledad. We'll talk about, her unfortunate demise and rise to stardom and stuff like that. And of course, the movie Vampiros Lesbos as well. So I'm super excited here tonight on Grande's Graveyard, everybody. I hope you guys are too. This is a show I've been kind of wanting to do for a long time. And I guess without further ado, we can get right underway with this son of a bitch. So cheers. I don't have anything to hold up. I actually drank my drink while I was sitting down here preparing. So, I mean, it is what it is. But cheers, everybody. Cheers. Have a wonderful, safe, happy, healthy weekend. And let's get underway with Grande's Graveyard. Now, this is a first time ever. Now, usually I read the plot synopsises right off of IMDb or Wikipedia or whatever, but I really didn't like the one they had for the film I'm going to be talking about first. So I decided to go ahead, sit down, and write my own plot synopsis. So if this is good, bad, or ugly, you can blame me, you can praise me, you can do whatever you want, because this one is on me. All right. So let's give a brief plot synopsis. Linda is a young German lawyer haunted by nightmarish, erotic visions of a sexy and seductive vampiress. After attending a show where she sees the Countess, she is lured by lust to the mansion off the Turkish coastline, where she meets her face to face. Here, it is revealed that the vampiress wants is female flesh and rosy, warm blood. Yes, I am talking to you people here tonight about Soledad Miranda, starring in Jess Franco's film. This is Vampiros Lesbos. Yes, Vampiros Lesbos from 1970, 1971. Depends on where you look. I've seen it 1970. It says 1970 on here. It says 71 on IMDb. So I don't know. It kind of depends. It's one of those things where it depends on where you check. And I got this awesome edition from Severin Films, and it has this awesome little slip cover here. I always loved this little window. I wish more releases would do this little window. Like, it kind of just invites you in kind of thing. So slip this off here. And then, whoa, yes. And I love the red background, because that's the primary color in the film is red. And I just love this. They also did a version of this with the movie She Killed in Ecstasy, which is another Jess Franco joint, which I'm a big, big fan. So I always like to collect Jess Franco stuff. And I love that they give special editions to both this and that film. Sean Blue Digital's in the house. What's up, good brother? You ready to talk some vampires, my friend? What up, Grande? Got a nice print of O negative. Hell yeah. Ready to sink my teeth into some vampires. Dude, I got some garlic. I've got a fucking cross. This cross has got to be older than me. this is an old fucking cross. And in fact, it kind of slides up and down, this son of a bitch. So I don't know. We're ready to stake motherfuckers in the heart tonight on Grande's Graveyard. So I hope you're all ready for that. But first and foremost, Vampiros Lesbos. Yes, Vampiros Lesbos is one of those movies that I think that anyone who isn't familiar with Jess Franco's work should try to start with if you're trying to delve into his filmography. Now, the guy made over 180 films in his lifetime, so I don't know if there's anybody that's going to fucking be able to cover them all, but if you're not so familiar with Jess Franco, I think this is a good starting point because around this time, Jess Franco was really sick of making films that weren't as creative or avant-garde as he wanted them to be. And case in point, the year before this, he made Dracula with Christopher Lee. And of course, Soledad Miranda was a bit player in that film. It was not well received, unfortunately. And Jess Franco blamed the producer. He was very frustrated with the producer and he wanted to cut ties with him, move on to a different producer that would give him more creative control. So he went to Germany and he found this new producer that would let him make 2 or 3 pictures. And he ended up doing the 3 pictures where, you know, he could experiment, create, and use whoever he wanted to use as the lead actors. Now, these had to be lower budget films because this wasn't as big of a name producer. But at the same time, he was able to be more creative and he was able to kind of bring his own unique flair to whatever he wanted to do. So he did a revenge film and She Killed in Ecstasy. She did a kind of 007 James Bond spoof and The Devil Came from Akasaba. And of course, most infamously, he did his own vampire film, Vampiros Lesbos, where instead of having old school Christopher Lee and an old school mansion and the old school rules, Jess Franco decided, hey, I'm turning that on its head. I'm going to change this and make it something of my own, where instead of having the old, you know, Dracula, instead you have the beautiful, seductive, erotic Soledad Miranda, of course, who goes by the pseudonym of Susan Corda in these films and all the Jess Franco films. And I love that he, in this film, drops every trope that there ever was about a vampire. And he wrote and directed this movie based around her look and her talent. And I really find that inspiring because I think Soledad Miranda was a once-in-a-lifetime talent. We're going to get into her, but first and foremost, like I said, dropping the tropes, right? Of course, vampires can't be exposed to sunlight. In this film, Soledad Miranda, you could be seeing her sunbathing and swimming in the beautiful ocean by her mansion. And vampires don't have reflections. You can see Soledad Miranda in the opening scene giving a show on stage with no clothes on, literally toying with herself in a mirror, her reflection bright as day. So just kind of drops all the tropes that it is to be a vampire. And these are generally gory films. There is some gore in here, but this is not really a gore splatter type film. I like that he kind of said, fuck the tropes, fuck the history. I want to make this my own. And of course, like I said, he was writing this movie around her talent because he said that she looked like a vampire. And I thought so for sure. I mean, I agree. When you look and see Soledad Miranda, like she has that young, beautiful body, voluptuous body, but her eyes are a lot older than the rest of her. If you ever notice, you ever look deep into Soledad Miranda's eyes, she's just one of those women that she looked a lot older eyes wise. And I think that's the perfect casting for a vampire who's been around for 200 years. Sure, she's voluptuous on the outside, but those eyes tell kind of a darker story, a longer story of more pain and sorrow. And I thought Soledad Miranda was the perfect casting choice, the only casting choice that Jess Franco could go with here. So let's get to some comments here. Bro, yeah, now we got our garlic, motherfucker. The 1936 Dracula's Daughter had some implied vampire lesbianism. Sorry, folks, I'll get it right here. Dracula with Christopher Lee was known as Horror's Dracula, also known as Dracula AD. That's true. Welcome, Slasher Fred. Lesbos pronouns only. Absolutely. No mistaking the pronouns here on Grande's Graveyard. It's okay, though. I'm just kidding. But this movie, man, I really like the whole nightmarish feel. This thing opens very 1970s. It's distinctly 1970s, where the film opens up and Soledad Miranda is literally doing this in front of the camera as we get some unique shots of the water and then this kind of erotic sex show between two women, one of them being Soledad Miranda. And there's a bunch of people at this club kind of just watching, drinking, enjoying the show. And our lead character, played by, I believe, Ewa Stromberg, who, from what I've read, Jess Franco hated her and hated working with her. She's also in, of course, She Killed in Ecstasy. They worked together quite a few times. He did not like working with her, unfortunately, but she plays our kind of protagonist here, Linda Westinghouse, and she is just entranced and enthralled by this show. And she is then haunted by nightmares of Soledad Miranda, where there are these erotic kind of visions, and she comes to climax and have orgasms over it. And she starts to kind of lust for Soledad Miranda's character, thus kind of leading her to the island where Soledad and her servant Morpho are staying. And we basically just get more in backstory of what Soledad's character is and where she came from, why she does the things that she does. And man, it is really, really, really well done. And I love the use of color in this film, especially red. I mean, if you're a fan of Clockwork Orange, some of the set design of this movie will really remind you of that. I mean, mind you, this is around the same time that Clockwork Orange came out. So you get these vibrant red couches and red armrests and red ceilings. And Soledad Miranda's primary kind of wear in this movie is a red scarf that she kind of wears when she's ready to seduce someone. I think it's really, really unique, the use of color in this film, red especially. And I mean, I think it's kind of funny how he turns the whole Dracula thing on its head, where instead of the Jonathan Harker meeting Dracula, if we all know the story of Bram Stoker's Dracula, here it's Ewa Stromberg sort of being the Jonathan Harker role, and then Soledad Miranda sort of being the Dracula role. And instead of this kind of intense meeting of the minds when it first meets, Soledad Miranda says, fuck it, let's go for a naked swim. And they run out into the beach and have a naked swim and lay and bathe in the sun afterwards. What vampire do you know would do that? Only Soledad, man. It's wonderful. It's really, really funny. Beautiful addition by Severin. It's on my watch list. I couldn't recommend it more. I actually like She Killed in Ecstasy a little bit better. That's another one that's should be on the Severin watch list. They released them back to back at the same time, and the features on this are awesome. You have Stephen Thrower, who is a huge inspiration to me. I just love Stephen Thrower. You also have Amy Brown, who's a Soledad Miranda kind of historian, talking about the story of her life, and it's really, really nice. And of course, interviews with Jess Franco, who is always a pleasure to listen to. That window slipcover looks amazing, and maybe Severin will do more of these. It's funny. They did these, I think, in 2015, 2016-ish, and they haven't done any since. And I don't know why, because I really, really like this. I think this is like so inviting. It's just such an awesome cover where it's like, dude, I got to buy it, slip that open. Like, that's just so badass. I think it's a 2-disc special dish where you also get the Spanish version of the film, because that is Las Vampiras on the top here. And the reason for that is, of course, this was a German produced film. So the dialogue is mostly recorded in German. So you watch this film on Blu-ray, on the Blu-ray version, it is the German version of the film. And there are some differences between it and the Spanish cut. I actually watched both cuts. I do think the German version is a lot better, and it's especially because it's in high definition. Like the DVD of the other, you could see how rough DVD is compared to Blu-ray when you watch them back to back. In Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, when Dracula bites Sandra, his reflection is shown in the mirror behind them. Okay, there you go. Well, that's more of a comedy one, and I guess you could say that some of this is comedic in ways, but I think this is also a movie that, when you think vampires, at least me, I like to think more, about the horrors of sex and the horrors of love. And horror can sometimes be quite erotic. And, Jess Franco at this time was really trying to prove himself as more of an artist, and using eroticism and vampirism and using, Soledad Miranda to kind of lead that ship. I think he nailed it. And I think the best scene in this entire movie is when Soledad Miranda is actually telling kind of her origin story. And I actually got this quote up here because I wanted to share it with you all, because it's just so fantastic. And this monologue where she discusses kind of how she became a vampire and what she does as a vampire it's really inspiring. It was my parents' house. Was it 100 or 200 years ago? I was very young and all alone. From my window, I saw soldiers looting and raping women in the street. They forced their way in and grabbed me. I struggled desperately and cried in agony. Suddenly, the Count appeared. Count Dracula. He stuck his knife into one of the soldiers lying on top of me. The man screamed, and I felt his blood running down my body. He was the first man in my life, and it was horrible. I thought I was going to lose my mind. Then I noticed the Count leaning over me. He whispered, "I will take you. I will take all your suffering away." When I woke up, he was lying next to me. His body was cold, but his lips burned like fire. Night after night, he came and took my blood to replenish his own life. When he realized that I was losing my strength, he shared with me the secrets of a vampire. Why did he do it? He was addicted to my body. It was he who initiated me. Men still disgust me. I hate them all. Many women were captivated by me. Many women. I bewitched them. They lost their identity. I became them. But then I met Linda. And now I'm under her spell. I have to initiate her in our circle. I was waiting for you. This is blood. Did you realize it was blood? You are now one of us. The queen of the night will bear you up on her black wings. Yes, that monologue is just so fucking inspiring. Like, that's why I love this movie in particular. Like, the way Soledad Miranda delivers it. And the scene is really nicely set up too, where she's lying on her back in this red room, and she's on a red kind of ottoman, just laying on her back, kind of all defeated and sad. And you see that this character has gone through hundreds of years of sorrow and regret and hatred and all these ugly things that are portrayed by just such a beautiful woman. And it's a really nice kind of clash in styles as she delivers this monologue. It's really, really powerful stuff as she's kind of pouring her heart out, and she believes that Linda is perfect for the new kind of circle and the inner circle that she wants to initiate her in. It's a really haunting and memorable monologue. John, what's your stand on Dracula? Team Lugosi or Team Lee, or do you go with a third name? I go Team Lugosi. I think Bela Lugosi is probably the best Dracula. I mean, there's tons of people that play Dracula over the years. I don't know. I would say the one that was the worst was the guy in Van Helsing, the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing. That guy who played Dracula was terrible. I didn't really like Luke Evans' Dracula. I would say Bela, man. Bela was just born to play that role. And I would even say that I love Bela as Igor as well. I think he was a great Igor. I think actually Igor is Bela Lugosi's best performance in Son of Frankenstein. I think that's a great one. I would say Team Lugosi, but what would you say, Mateo? I'd be curious to hear what you'd say. One of the classic lesbian vampire stories is Carmilla. Absolutely. LO, Jess Franco. Dude, you gotta love Franco. I've never seen Vampiros Lesbos Forever Homes. Oh, dude, you got to, man. The line, "You are now one of us," would later be used in The Lost Boys. Hell yeah, I love Lost Boys. That was a wild monologue, and you describing the red lighting has definitely sold me on grabbing a copy. Dude, yeah, and this whole movie has that just like nightmarish look to it. I almost compare it to a Phantasm, and like, it's not story wise, but the way the movie feels, it's very nightmarish. Like, the whole movie kind of feels like a dream. And there's a lot of avant-garde type shots where you have a scorpion crawling underwater. Why is that there? It's Jess Franco. You see a kite kind of flying in the sky. Why is that there? Jess Franco was obsessed with fucking nudity. He was obsessed with like sex, eroticism, and mostly he's obsessed with sailboats. You can't really watch a Jess Franco film without seeing sailboats in them. And this is no exception. We see quite a few sailboats in this movie, and I never could really understand why he had that obsession and infatuation with sailboats, but they're in all of his movies kind of at the forefront. And it's just something that you kind of notice when you watch Vampiros Lesbos. I think it's really well done. And of course, Linda is haunted by these nightmarish visions. And there's a great scene where Soledad Miranda and her have dinner together, and they're talking one-on-one, drinking wine. And you really see the emphasis on red candles and red wine. And there's a wonderful scene where right before they make love, Soledad Miranda is kind of hidden behind this yellow curtain, and she opens up the curtain, and the camera slowly, because Jess Franco loves doing zooms too, right? If you know Jess Franco, he's going to do zoom shots. If you took a shot every zoom shot Jess Franco does in a movie, you'd be dead by the 20-minute mark. Let's be honest. They do this slow kind of zoom shot on her face, and she has the blood kind of pouring right here. and looking seductively at Linda, and then of course you get your first lesbian vampire scene, and it's really powerful. The just the kind of use of sex in this film, I think it's really interesting because most vampire films they have it as like a theme, but this is really the theme. It's really this entire movie is kind of sexually driven, and I really like that they kind of went there instead of going horrifically driven. They kind of went erotically driven and the horrors that come with that. So it's kind of on the side or on the coattail, if you will. And I thought that was pretty good personally. I'll stop joking around. Dude, no worries at all. You can joke all you want. Have you seen Faceless? One of his best. I love Faceless. That's a great one. Oh man, I forgot about Faceless. Severin released that one too. I had that on DVD from Shriek Show in the past. Oh man, Shriek Show. That's an old name, man. Gene Sanford is here. Gene, welcome. Love all these Euro lesbo vampire films. Got about 6, I think. Hell yeah, man. Let us know what 6 you got. Yes, Sean Sev put it out last year. Yeah, I got that Shriek DVD. Oh, there you go. Okay, you guys got multiple editions of this. But Vampiros Lesbos, I mean, I just love this movie. I think this is really awesome, and it's one of those where Soledad Miranda is really at the forefront. Where you watch She Killed in Ecstasy, you get to see her play more of a protagonist. Here, she's playing more of the villain, the antagonist, and I think she does a really good job in both roles. I think she looks the part of this role a lot more than she does of the kind of young housewife that she is in She Killed in Ecstasy. I think she looks more like an evil vampiress, if you will. But her whole story, and I know I may have talked about it on past episodes, it's quite sad. So if I have talked about it before, I apologize for repeating. But her story definitely needs to be told because her entire career, she was one of those people that was trying to find a spot in Hollywood, right? She had women in the business hold her back. When Gina Lollobrigida, who just passed away, crazy enough, she hated Soledad Miranda. In fact, that they did a movie together and she had the producer or the editor cut scenes with her in it out just because she hated her so much. And of course, she was kind of always casted as the Dumbo, the dumb pretty one. That was kind of her typecasting in a lot of these Western films that she did with Burt Reynolds. I believe 21 Rifles was one of them in the 60s. And she had done some kind of cheesy, goofy horror movies before that and kind of like, teen sitcom, whatever. She was kind of typecasted in that role. And it wasn't really until Jess Franco discovered her in these movies, with movies like this, with movies like, Eugenie Desade, movies like, Nightmares Come at Night and She Killed in Ecstasy, Devil Came from Akasaba, where she kind of broke that mold from being the dumb, pretty one to being something so much more. Because screen presence, and I say this, not lightly, screen presence to me is the most important thing that you can have in a film and from an actor and or actress. And Soledad Miranda had arguably the greatest screen presence that you could ever want and ask for. And it wasn't just her beauty. It was the way she could contort her face. It was the way she could deliver lines. It was the way she could tell a story with her eyes. And that sounds like not much on paper, but it's so hard to do because that talent like that does not grow on trees. And that's what's so sad about Soledad Miranda. Her career would have taken off because after this movie and She Killed in Ecstasy and The Devil Came from Akasaba, they were going to sign a 6-picture deal where she was going to become a big star. And Jess Franco wanted to do some avant-garde films and then do a huge film, like a big budgeted multi-million-dollar movie where she was going to become a big worldwide phenomenon. That's what they really were building towards. And of course, Jess Franco and the producer, they wrote up a contract to get a 6-picture deal with her. On the way driving there, unfortunately, she was killed in a car accident at the age of 27. And we were robbed of, how many great movies and performances that Soledad Miranda could have given us. And she was robbed of becoming, I think, an international star. I mean, we know us diehard horror fans and Jess Franco fans, Euro sleaze fans, we know Soledad Miranda, but it's such a shame because it's not a worldwide known name like a Gina Lollobrigida, like a Brigitte Bardot, like names like that became so big and iconic, sex symbols, if you will. I think Soledad would have been one of those names, and I think she would have been even more than a sex symbol. I think she would have been one of these actresses that really kind of changed the game. And I thought she was just absolutely a once in a lifetime talent. And it's really sad that she died so young. And, watching her performance in this, talking about dying and talking about the pain it was to be alive and stuff, you can't help but kind of think about it when you watch this performance. Her last three performances are almost like a eulogy for her life. It's really quite gutting to see. And Jess Franco talks about her on this and how important she was. And he says, like, what do I think of what her career could have been? It makes me sad because she didn't live to see it. She didn't see Vampiros Lesbos. She never saw She Killed in Ecstasy. She only saw clips because she died before these movies even came out, which is really, it's quite heartbreaking for sure. I am Team Kretschmann. No, I'm a Lee guy. Team Kretschmann. Oh no Dracula 3D on me here, Mateo. Don't do that to me. I love Christopher Lee too. I think Christopher Lee is wonderful. He played Dracula, a bunch and way more than Lugosi ever did. But I love Christopher Lee. I think Christopher Lee is just fantastic. Looks like it came at a bad time later. What do you mean, buddy? You can stay. You did not come at a bad time. We're always doing some good stuff. And I hope that if you are still here, you could always, of course, talk to us about the Euro Lesbo vampire films that you have in your collection. Just saying. You always can share that here in the graveyard. It is open to any and everybody. But yeah, no, it is heartbreaking when you hear the story of Soledad Miranda, and this movie is one of those where I watch it and I'm happy, but I'm also slightly sad that she didn't get to live on and do more, and that's why I wear this T-shirt proud, and I really think she was a great talent, and that's like one of those things. I'm happy Jess saw that. I'm happy Jess Franco kind of saw that in her and used her to her highest of potential, and who knows, maybe she could have broke a glass ceiling or two on her way up if she had survived longer. It's one of those things that I always speculate. And unfortunately, I know they were filming a movie when she passed, and I think it's called Sex Charade, and that's now a lost film. There's no finding that movie anymore. They only shot about 40 minutes of it before she had passed, and they replaced her, I think, on a movie called Justine, or no, it might have been Eugene, one of the Eugenie movies, or Justine, I don't remember. But she got replaced, and Jess Franco, of course, infamously hated the replacement because you can't replace Soledad Miranda. Like, it's just not the same. I think another actress got that 6-picture deal, and you can't recapture that screen presence, in my opinion. She was really, truly once in a lifetime. One of the vampire movies that I have seen is The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is directed by Roman Polanski. That movie spoofs many of the vampire hammer. That's right. And that was right around the time he did Rosemary's Baby, which is more of a serious and highly regarded horror film. And then he makes that kind of spoof vampire movie in the middle. Of course, there's a lot of vampire spoof movies. There's the, Dracula Dead and Loving It, which was Mel Brooks. And I don't know, it's one of those genres that there's so much you can do with it, right? You can go comedy, you can go kind of more erotic, you can go straight up horror, you can go gothic horror. I don't know. I think the thing about this movie is I appreciate that it didn't go gothic horror. Like the movie we're going to be talking about next, The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, this went far more gothic horror, just like the standard werewolf and vampire movies of its time. And this kind of just said, fuck it, we're embracing the 1970s. This is like the most 1970s vampire film you can watch because there's all that experimental filmmaking and beautiful, vibrant colors and, nude women and all of these things and interesting experimental type music that Jess Franco plays with his film. I really like Vampiros Lesbos. I think it's one that people need to see and people need to talk about more. If you don't own this edition, I highly recommend it. I think it's well worth it. Next time Severin does a sale, I would say sink your teeth into Vampiros Lesbos because it's one of those awesome, awesome movies. One that, plot-wise, I know I didn't talk much about the plot because it's really not a movie I watch for a plot. It's more about the presence. It's more about the circumstances and the kind of atmosphere, hypnotic nature, and bright, vibrant colors in Soledad Miranda. And to me, it's just kind of all bundled up in a nice little bow here. I really love Vampiros Lesbos. This is Vampiros Lesbos. Highly recommend this awesome Jess Franco joint. Nate is here. What's up, everyone? Nate, welcome to my graveyard, my friend. There was a 1980s vampire movie called Lair of the White Worm. I love that movie. Late Ken Russell, may he rest in peace. Love Lair of the White Worm. And I plan on doing more of these. I want to definitely do vampire shows every now and again. I'm trying to keep the show as fresh as I can, and I want to be introducing more like newer concepts for shows. I want to do some vampire specials. Definitely we'll still do our video nasty special stuff like that, but I also want to maybe do like a cursed object show. That's something that I've been thinking about doing, and that's something that could be in the very near future. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But next up from I believe the year 1971, so around the same time, this is The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. Yes, Elvira and her friend Genevieve travel through the French countryside in search of the lost grave of the medieval vampire Countess Wandessa. Yes, the werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. Yes. Now, this is an infamous Paul Nashcy joint, and Paul Nashcy is infamous for playing a lot of different movie monsters. He had played, I believe might have played Dracula at one time. I know he played a bunch of movie monsters, but he's most infamous for playing a werewolf. He played the werewolf, I believe, 12 separate occasions, which is wild. And Video Nasty fans will remember him from The Werewolf versus the Yeti, which I know actually Nate, I think, recently watched that one. The werewolf versus the vampire. I'm sorry, the werewolf versus the Yeti. That's a Video Nasty. And of course, he had done Werewolf versus Dr. Jekyll. And then, of course, the werewolf versus the vampire women. He was doing all of these kind of B movie type werewolf films. And this was the one where let's face a vampire at the end. Let's do it. Let's just fucking throw caution to the wind. And this is a really fun kind of old school gothic horror movie where, we were talking about Vampiros Lesbos, how that's a movie that kind of subverts the tropes and adds all of its new things with, vampires sunbathing and swimming in the nude and having reflections and, not giving a shit for whatever the rules are. This is a movie that does care about the rules. And this is a movie that I think is more of your classic old school type horror movie. This would have fit right in with like a Universal monster movie, but instead of being made in the 1930s in black and white, this is presented here in 4K ultra high definition from Vinegar Syndrome, which I think this is an awesome addition here. The Werewolf versus the Vampire Women. I'm not sure if this has reversible cover art. Oh, it does have reversible cover art. We could check it out. This is, I actually didn't know. Whoa, I actually like this a little bit better. Okay, let's flip it over here because I did not know this had reversible cover art. Usually their stuff does. I don't know why I just assumed that. But let's flip this over here and we can show exactly what this reversible cover art is because I think this is a little bit better. So let's close this here. Oh, I don't have this in right. Hold on. Whoa. See, this I like much better. I think this is way more old school. I like this way better. The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. Awesome, awesome cover art from Severin Films. This is an awesome edition. The 4K transfer looks absolutely fantastic. You'd never know you're watching a movie that's 50 plus years old, but yet, this presentation makes it look fantastic. I know in the past, there were a lot of physical media editions of this that did not look the greatest. In particular, I think there was an overseas Blu-ray that people said just looked like an upscale DVD, which is a shame. But now you can watch this in 4K ultra high def, and this is 3-disc special edition. The 4K disc is obviously what I watched, and then you have features on one of the other discs, and then of course a Blu-ray transfer on one of the other discs as well. There's different cuts of this movie. I won't lie, I just watched the regular, cut on 4K, so I didn't watch the 3 different cuts of this, so I don't know exactly what the differences would be. Whereas Vampiros Lesbos, I know the differences, and Thirst, which we'll get to later, actually is a longer cut that is not available in the United States, which is interesting enough. But Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. Let's see. We got some comments here. Great cover. I totally agree. I think this slipcover is badass. Like, I'm a big fan of Vinegar Syndrome, and they do some great stuff with some of their artwork. The blood flows like vintage wine. That was actually the tagline for this movie, which is cool. Yay, big Paul Nashcy fan. Hell yeah, man. I love Paul Nashcy. Imagine making one of these Lesbo movies today. Well, I mean, they do, but they're not considered art. Not that they were considered art back then or anything like that, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I like when you mix things with horror. Like, I think like horror and comedy get mixed together a lot, but why not sex and horror? Why not? Like I think because people usually generally, if sex is involved, they go, oh, it's porn. Like, no, not at all. I wouldn't consider this a porn at all. There's sex scenes, of course, soft sex scenes, but there's only 2. It's more of an atmospheric, avant-garde horror movie about a vampire who is dealing with sorrow and things like that, and in these vibrant, 70s style colors. I wouldn't consider that at all, but it has eroticism. This movie has implied lesbianism, but it's not ever really capitalized on. But I do think that Paul Nashcy does a really good job in the role of the werewolf. Of course, this movie opens up with they're doing an autopsy on his character, and he has silver bullets in his stomach. And of course, these 2 geniuses, let's take the bullets out. And of course, they decide to do the autopsy on the night of a full moon. Bad fucking idea. They take the bullets out, and of course, because it's the full moon, Paul Nashcy transforms, kills their asses, and is out and about on the public. And then, of course, we get our two lead characters. Of course, Elvira is one of them, which I thought was kind of funny. Of course, Cassandra Peterson being Elvira, the movie host, and, Genevieve. And they are traveling through the French countryside where they come across Paul Nashcy and decide to stay in his mansion where all of these kind of sequences of horror play out. And I will say this is a movie that sets up far better than it finishes. I would say the first 35, 40 minutes, really good stuff, really good horror gothic type of vibes in this movie, where there's some interesting nightmare sequences where, Elvira is sleeping and she has this vision where she's in this kind of forest, and you see this amazing kind of use of smoke and fog, and you see these kind of cranberry bushes where she is looking around, and it's just a beautiful picture, especially in 4K. This thing just pops on 4K, where she's kind of looking around and she sees the Countess Wandessa sort of trying to lure her to join her on the vampire side. I thought that was really well done, the nightmare sequences in this. And of course, there's a scene where they visit her grave, and I would like to think Clive Barker took great inspiration from this particular scene where the vampire woman is in the casket. She's aged. She's all skull and bone. And the woman opens the thing and cuts her hand accidentally. And of course, the blood pours and drips down right into the Countess's mouth. This 300-year-old corpse hits the blood hits the mouth, and then of course, slowly but surely, her skin starts to come back. In similar vein to, of course, Clive Barker's Hellraiser, where that happens with Frank and the mattress, the blood on the mattress, and he comes back to life. And while they, of course, didn't do the special makeup effects as good as that movie, it is funny kind of how they both are resurrected the same way. Somebody cutting their hand accidentally and the blood hitting the body, and then, of course, coming back to life for the insatiable thirst and lust for blood. I thought that was really, really well done here, really old school. I will say this, though, after about the 40-minute mark, this thing fucking slows down. And I am never one to say a movie's boring or tedious. This thing hits a fucking wall after the 40-minute mark, where it's like, holy shit, I don't give a fuck. You have a really, really bad love story. I would even go as far as say it might be the worst love story I've ever fucking seen in a film, where the two leads just had no fucking chemistry, and they just happened to fall in love over a day. Over a fucking day, they fall in love like they've been together for 10 years. It's bullshit. The love kind of angle here just really, really didn't work for me. I actually thought it crippled the film from any, poise and momentum that it had going for it. I think right when she gets resurrected and starts recruiting, of course, Elvira and Genevieve, or at least trying to, I thought that was a really good kind of standpoint. And then we should have maybe gone back to Nashcy being the werewolf. Like, I think we definitely got more vampire woman than we do werewolf in this film. And that kind of hurts it. That's the thing with versus movies. It's really hard to balance it out, right? Whether it be Sadako versus Kayako, we definitely get more Sadako than Kayako. Kayako is almost there to just kill people and be there behind the scenes. And then, you look at a Freddy versus Jason. Freddy kind of controls the story where Jason's doing all the work. And, we can look at so many versus movies where it seems to be more about one than the other. It's hard to balance these out. And I know this is more of a vampire show, so I should be happy that it's more of a vampire movie. And I guess I am, but I definitely think you could have got more Wolfman in there. It kind of starts with Wolfman, then it's a long stretch of vampire woman, and then Wolfman kind of shows up at the end, and you have their kind of universal monster-like battle. It's not a very, WWE battle. It's just kind of a struggle, and then one kills the other. It's really not much of a fucking fight. Let's be honest. It's nothing too extravagant or gory or, well choreographed. It's not like anything you'd see in a John Wick. Let's put it that way. But nor do you really be able to expect that, right? I don't know, though. I definitely think this thing hits a wall after the 40-minute mark, and that love story really hurts this thing. But that's not to say that I don't like the atmosphere in this one. I think the atmosphere in this one is really well done. And once again, it's distinctly 1970s, like a Vampyros Lesbos. I think like both of these movies are very much what I like about the 1970s. But I would even say this one has more of an old school feel, like the whole setting being in a mansion, and you have this basement where there are people being chained up and killed and stuff like that. I liked that stuff. I thought that stuff was pretty well done. I don't know, like the acting, it's okay in this movie, but I do think a lot of this is very convoluted when it comes to story wise and story arcs and stuff like that. I think the story is just kind of messy and all over the place, but that's just me. I don't know, just kind of a one of those things for me. AJ's in the house. Hey, buddy. AJ, welcome, my friend. Hope all's well with you, man. AJ came for the taste of blood. Yes, the taste of blood. And I know AJ's going to be getting a Coney dog for me, or I guess a Coney dog for himself, for me, if you will. Once everything is cool, I hope he's hitting up the city because, man, I was looking today. I know AJ's a hardcore Chicago guy. I saw that this place had these awesome Coney dogs. Looked amazing, man. Chili, onions, and mustard, man. It looked delish. So, AJ, I hope you're here for the blood and the chili dog. There is also the movie The Hunger, which has an aging vampire. Yeah, no, there's a ton of vampire films. This was fun. You know, I kind of looked at my collection and I was like, which ones would I want to give a spotlight to? Like, which ones would I want to like talk about that are lesser talked about? And these are why I picked these three. These are three that definitely I wanted to discuss. Nashcy movies sometimes hit a wall. Yeah, this is one that does for sure. You got it, Mernsey. Hello, everybody. Aiden's in the house. Welcome, my friend. I'll mail you a dog. Hell yeah, mail me a dog, my friend. That is what I'm talking about. This thing, though, I don't know. I like this. I definitely would say of the three, it's probably the weakest just because of pacing issues. I do think the director, I want to get his name here, Leon Kilmovsky. I think he does a pretty decent job of capturing some of that old school kind of gothic horror vibe. But I would say this, I definitely think that the pacing and story needed some work. Like, I definitely think you could have tried a rewrite on this movie for sure. But I don't know. It's a movie, it's like just over 80 minutes. I don't think it overstays its welcome. It kind of knows what it is. And I don't mind the battle at the end. I think it's fine. It's kind of fun. It's kind of adventurous, if you will. Like the Countess is ready to kill her victims. And of course, the fucking full moon rises and, you know, the werewolf takes on the vampire woman in the finale. I think it's fun. It's one of those movies where it's like, it's a B movie. It's probably a 5 out of 10 at best. But I don't know. I like it. And I appreciate that Vinegar Syndrome would go all out for a movie like this, you know, and this is one that I know for the longest time didn't have that proper special edition. You know, they had the Paul Nashcy collections from Shout Factory, but this movie was always like glaring sore thumb, the one that was missing on those sets. And I'm glad that now you can get this in a nice special edition. I think this movie's fun. Nothing great, but definitely one that you could watch with friends and have a good time. And maybe if you're running a vampire marathon, the werewolf versus the vampire woman would not be a bad choice, in my opinion. So that is the werewolf versus the vampire woman. The thing about vampire films, there will always be a hidden gem among the genre. And that's the thing, man. Like we were saying before, there's so much you could do with that vibe and that story and that type of deal. And I really appreciate that these three movies, in fact, you know, you have one that, you know, used more sex to kind of tell its story and drive its story. You have one that went old school and with the tropes. And then you have our last film that we're about to get to, where it's just a horse of a different color. It did something completely different that I've never seen anybody do with the vampire genre. And that's, of course, Park Chan Wook. So I'm super excited to get to that one. I think the last thing vampire related I bought on 4K edition was Blood for Dracula. I don't like Blood for Dracula at all. I think Blood for Dracula is actually one they should never have done on 4K. Now, Flesh for Frankenstein, which was what Vinegar Syndrome did to counter, that's a great movie. I love Flesh for Frankenstein. Blood for Dracula, though, I don't know. I always felt it was kind of lesser and definitely not a movie that deserved a $50 special edition. Love that beginning scene where the wolf attacks the guy and takes a big chunk out of his neck. Oh, dude, yeah. And then attacks the poor innocent woman in one of the most bad day for night shots I've ever seen. They're trying to make it look like night, but you can clearly tell it's the middle of the day, especially on a fucking 4K, which is going to make everything look brighter. I was like, oof. I was like, you could clearly tell that they're fucking trying to shade the area that they're in. I thought it was quite funny. Like, I laughed out loud. I was like, oh my God. But you really, you know, you had to get some werewolf carnage in here. Like, it's sorely missing. After the opening scene, there's not a lot of werewolf in it for me. You know, but again, like I said, it's definitely more of a vampire tale where we're talking about the Countess Wandessa and the way to kill her. There's a very specific way to kill her and all that stuff. So I don't know. I definitely think that it's more vampire woman type of movie. It's more her movie, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I just think in a versus movie, it's best you balance it out. And there's a little, I mean, Nashcy's in the film for a long enough time, but there's not a lot of werewolf in this film. Like if you did like the old school, like let's see how much time, like screen time, the werewolf is in this, I'd be stunned if you got past 4 minutes. Like I don't even think you'd get 5 minutes out of it, if that. If you even got 3 minutes, I don't even know. I am always a sucker for vampire western, like From Dusk Till Dawn, John Carpenter's Vampires, great movies. I mean, I love both of those. Blood for Dracula has its moments, but I enjoy it for what it is, and I think I paid 30. That's fine. 30 for 4K is fine. I think when it dropped, it was like around. I know Flesh for Frankenstein was like 80 when it initially dropped, and I was like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. But man, like I think that movie 30 I could see, but 50, no way. I hope Argento's Dracula gets a 4K release. I fucking hope it doesn't. I think there's a Blu-ray 3D of it out, which is astonishing because I don't know if people even, I mean, people definitely don't have Blu-ray 3D players and they definitely don't have Blu-ray 3D TVs. So, I mean, that is neither here nor there. There'd be no way to really watch it in 3D. But I always love the story with Dracula 3D where they screened that at fucking Cannes Film Festival. I would fucking pay the dumbest amount of money just to have seen the people's fucking reactions at Cannes Film Festival, where you have films that win Best Picture at Cannes Film Festival. You had Dracula fucking 3D only because Argento directed it. That is insane. I just would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and seen the fucking critics' faces when they fucking watched Dracula 3D. Like, I think that would have been the funniest thing of all time, watching somebody else's reaction. I think that would be absolutely priceless personally, but I mean, that is neither here nor there. That is Dracula 3D, which is a horse of a different color. And I believe I've talked about it on the When Good Directors Go Bad episode. So if you haven't checked that out, you can always check that one out. That was a really fun one. But we're rounding things here tonight on the show with a super underrated vampire movie, probably of the three, the most under-talked about, underseen. And I think it's a crying shame because this movie is fucking great. I would say this is close to being a masterpiece. And this is, of course, from director Park Chan Wook, who, of course, brought us the Vengeance trilogy, of course, Old Boy, and, of course, from Three Extremes, the segment Cut. I mean, Stoker. I love Park Chan Wook. I think the guy is great. I always say this, and people will get offended. I always looked at him as the Korean Quentin Tarantino. Like, he's and what I mean by that, and people get fucking mad, and I don't mean to make people mad, he's quality over quantity. Like, he hasn't made that many films, Park Chan Wook, and his films are all quality. I've never seen a bad Park Chan Wook film. And like, that's what I mean when I compare him to Tarantino. And I definitely think he's a guy that plays with different genres, right? He's definitely delved into some different genres. And I never in my lifetime thought he'd make a vampire film, and let alone a vampire film, but let alone one this good. And it is from the year 2009. This is Thirst, yes, from South Korea. Through a failed medical experiment, a priest is stricken with vampirism and is forced to abandon his ascetic ways. Yes, Thirst from 2009. I picked this up from Kino Lorber in a sale that they did. So worth it. I think I got this for like $9. This movie, this should be worth fucking $30 special edition. I wish there was fucking features on it. There's not. It's pretty bare bones. Yeah, theatrical trailer, audio commentary by author Brian Reisman. That's the only two special features on here. And you know, if it's a trailer, that's not really the most special features. You can look that up on fucking YouTube. So let's be honest here. The commentary I haven't listened to, though. I won't lie. This is a real horse of a different color when it comes to vampire movies, and I really love it for that. And when I heard back in the day when Park Chan Wook was going to be making a vampire movie, I was super excited. I was like, holy shit. I've got to see this because I love Old Boy and I love Lady Vengeance and I love the Vengeance trilogy and Cut. And I love Park Chan Wook's work. However, it took me the longest time to actually see this movie. And it wasn't until I bought it in that Kino sale a couple years ago where I finally sat down and gave this a first-time watch. And I was fucking blown away by this thing. Basically tells the story of, and I want to get the actor's name right. Excuse me if, you know, some of these are South Korean names. So if I mispronounce them, I do apologize in advance. Song Kang-ho, who actually most Americans would know from a little movie called Parasite, which won Best Picture a couple years ago. He is the lead. He's the dad in that. Song Kang-ho, and he's in The Host. He works with Bong Joon-ho a lot, and he's in a ton of South Korean films. He's just a huge, huge star there. And of course, Kim Ok-bin, who plays Taiju, who is the love interest in the film. And it basically tells a story about his character, Song Kang-ho's character. He's this priest, and you could see on the surface that he's kind of sad. He's depressed. He's one that is trying to be a healer, so to speak, but he's also very depressed in his own personal life. He is not loved. He is just kind of in a deep depression. And he hears about this horrible virus called EV that makes these awful skin lesions grow on your body. And it makes you just become this grotesque looking thing, and it slowly drains you and kills you. Similar to like Ebola, if people know what the fuck Ebola is. Remember that whole fucking phenomenon. Ebola, it's kind of like, this thing that slowly kills you, makes you grow these awful lesions, and then you just die a painful, slow death. And he volunteers to kind of participate in a cure search where they're doing all of these blood transfusions. And of course, he contracts the virus. He's on his deathbed. He thinks he's going to die. And he says, let's keep trying the transfusions. I don't want to die for nothing. Maybe, just maybe we can find a cure. And sure enough, he gets this blood transfusion, and all of a sudden he starts to get better. What he doesn't know when he gets this transfusion is he's getting a blood transfusion from a vampire. And of course, the vampire blood turns him into a vampire, and he miraculously starts healing. And then this movie kind of plays out from there. Everyone thinks he's this grand old healer and one that can solve and heal cancer and solve and cure, if you're deaf, if you're blind, if you have, any kind of disability. They believe this man to be like the second coming of Christ because he's a priest. And of course, the film kind of plays out where he runs into this old childhood friend of his, and then he goes to his house and then kind of falls in love with his wife. And you have this interesting kind of love triangle play out from there. And this is a really grand vampire film. And that's why I really like this movie, because you have a lot of themes going on here, just aside from the old school vampire story. And I watched an interview with Park Chan Wook, and that's why and what he was going for here. He didn't want to just make another vampire movie, even though there are some tropes that he stays with. I mean, that you can't be in the sunlight or anything like that, and you explode into flames and stuff like that. Like, he definitely has some of the tropes and plays by some of the rules here. But this is also a love story, a really sad, depressing love story between two people that are truly sad and depressed on their core. And as we're introduced to Taeju, the Kim Ok-bin character, she is just, I think, steals this movie. I think she's absolutely the best thing in this movie. Her performance is just tremendous here, as you see her on the bottom of this Korean one-sheet cover art. She's this woman who's married, but she's depressed, and she was treated like a dog her whole life and forced to do all these ugly, disgusting sexual acts for not just the man she's married to, but for his friends as well. It's a really sad monologue when she's getting into it and how horrible and horrific her life has become. And she's slowly but surely kind of seductively enthralled by, our lead character, the priest character, and they kind of fall in love and start having sex. And you'd think like, if we were talking about this movie before, lesbian sex scenes that are exciting and colorful and with nipple sucking and fucking beautiful blonde women and smooth skin and seance like sex scenes, which are just inspiring and exciting to watch. These sex scenes, on the other hand, are depressing and sad. Like you could not imagine a sadder love scene than the ones in this movie, where you're just like, you see these two people who were afraid to cry out for help and afraid to admit that they were truly depressed on their inner cores, and find each other. And it's a really sad kind of bondage that they form. And of course, when she finds out that he is a vampire, she's afraid of him. She wants nothing to do with him, but instead decides, hey, I want to use you to kill my husband, who I despise, and his friends who I've given hand jobs to, and all these horrible sexual acts. She tries to use him in order to eliminate all of the awful people that she's come in contact with every single day of her life. And in turn, she eventually becomes a vampire. And then you have this kind of whole morality trope, which is played in this film. Whereas, of course, our priest character is killing people out of necessity, right? He wants to kill people. If you're suicidal and you kill yourself, he'll drink your blood that way. Or if you're a comatose patient, he's literally going to the hospitals late at night and drinking the blood out of comatose patients. Anything he can do to kind of survive and advance, right? Because he doesn't want to kill anybody. He's still a priest. He still means well, but he doesn't want to kill anybody. And there's the whole morality play here. Whereas on the other hand, the Kim Open character, she's loving it. She wants to kill anybody and everybody because she's always been miserable. And her whole life has been filled with just misery. And she does not care. She wants to kind of vigorously jump the rooftops and swarm the nights and be the bat and be a vampire. And you see the kind of whole morality clash in this movie, and I think it's brilliantly done. I thought Park Chan Wook, what a brilliant idea to tackle those themes in a movie, right? We have one that's doing it for necessity, one that's doing it for the thrill of it, because we never know if we got those things. If I was a vampire, turned into a vampire tomorrow, I don't know. I don't know if I would automatically be so moral, especially if I was depressed like either one of these two, right? I mean, it's an interesting kind of thing to bring up in a movie like this. But let's get back to the chat. I'm sorry, I kind of neglected the chat for a minute here. Let's see. I think it was this one. I got Dracula 3D for Christmas on Blu-ray from a relative because they knew I was a hardcore fan of Argento and his work. Hell yeah, that's awesome. You can never finish you got to finish the collection, I guess, right? Granted, I will never buy that with my own money. Pretty sure I never finished watching Argento's Dracula. That's a fucking good idea. That's you saved whenever you turned it off, you saved that part of your life. Granted, the Asia Argento bathtub scene is pretty fun. When you mentioned Thirst, I was thinking 1979 film with Henry Silva. Oh, and I love that movie as well. That's another one I think Severn has, funny enough. Never seen this 2009 one. I highly recommend that. I think it's great. And I'll get into when I get into like heavy spoilers. You know, what I'm talking about is basically the entire movie anyway, but it's a really, I mean, Old Boy is a masterpiece. And I mean, I love Park Chan Wook. He's just fantastic. Yes, Severn released that. Okay, they did. Man, I totally forgot about Thirst, and I've heard recommendations about it before. Yeah, no, it's a really good one, man. I don't get why it's not talked about more. Depressing sex scenes in a vampire film. Well, that's something I've never heard of until now. Yeah, and it's like, I remember when I first watched this, I got like depressed watching. I was like, damn, like this is fucking not a movie that's going to boost your self-esteem at all. Like this movie makes you feel like shit from beginning, middle to end. There's not a happy moment in this movie. There's not a laugh in this movie. It's fucking pretty dark and serious throughout, but I think in a good way. Somber depravity, Labyrinth, UFC breakdowns in the house. Welcome, my friend. I hope all is well with you tonight. Yeah, no, and I got to say, I appreciated that. Because like I was saying before, like while I enjoy Vampiros Lesbos, I love how, you know, high energy this movie is and weird and avant-garde and colorful and sexy and enjoyably sexy at that. Eroticism and kind of using those themes to excite the viewer. Who could ever think that vampire sex would kind of make you feel shitty? And it does. It really does. And I can't even believe it. I don't know how he was able to capture that tone. But he nailed it, man. He fucking nailed it. I love it. There's a great scene of the two of them where they're arguing about the morality of killing and stuff like that. And she's trying to make her case and saying, you know, when a chicken is eaten by an animal, does anyone say anything? Let me live. Let me be free. Let me enjoy my life. I've had just a miserable, awful, cruel life filled with miserable, cruel people. I want to live. I want to breathe. I want to really embrace being this monster, being this vampire. And they have this wonderful chase between the two of them on top of the rooftops at night. It almost looks like something out of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, this scene where they're jumping from rooftop to rooftop and he's chasing her, trying to convince her not to do these things and how horrible it is. And you can't kill innocent people no matter how good it makes you feel. And I just love that. I love the kind of storytelling that comes here, this morality storytelling. And like I said, the themes of not only, you know, misery and themes of sadness and themes of depression, but themes of love, right? These are two people that were sad, afraid to reach out, and through this awful, deadly virus and vampirism, kind of come together in this weird way. It's a really really fucking good movie, man. I really really like this movie. It's something else. And I'm going to get into super spoilers here. So if you haven't seen this movie, definitely go see it. You could turn me off, no worries at all, because I want to get into super spoilers here. But it's one that it couldn't get a higher recommendation for me. I literally think it's a perfect film. Like not even fretting here. Of course, you have the two of them arguing, and she wants to kill her husband. And of course, she tells him, listen, my husband beats me and we have to get rid of him. And of course, the priest does not like this, and he agrees, and they kill him and drink his blood and all of that stuff. And of course, you find out that she was lying about that. She just wanted him out of the way. And when he finds out about this, he is heartbroken. He's like, he was innocent too. If he wasn't hitting you, he was innocent too. He may have been a piece of shit. He may have treated you like shit, but he didn't deserve to die for that. We maybe could have taught him a lesson, but he didn't deserve to die because of that. And he realizes that she's really, truly being carried away with all of these kind of feelings and wanting these people to die at her hands. So he decides, listen, we're going to have to die. We can't keep doing this because she's getting carried away, and a lot of innocent people are going to be taken out because of this. And they, of course, drive out to the beach where there's a sunrise about to come, and she's trying to argue with him and listen, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to die. And he's basically saying, listen, we belong dead, which is the old, of course, 1935 Bride of Frankenstein. You leave, we belong dead. As Frankenstein pulls the lever, as his bride, and of course the other crazy doctor, they all kind of die and perish in the castle as it explodes. These two watch the sunrise as they both meet their demise and burst into flames, painfully so. I don't know. I don't think you could end this movie in a better way. I think it's just so poetic. Like these two people that were sad and miserable, that found each other and loved each other, and through this awful kind of becoming vampires, had to abandon this love because it's not perfect. Love is not perfect. And neither was their relationship, and neither was their lives. It's kind of a really interesting take on a love story with a vampiristic twist. And then, of course, I think the main thing for me is the themes of depression here. This is really a movie that calls out to people, anyone who's ever suffered through depression. I see a lot of it in the lead character, and especially a lot of it in the female protagonist character, or I guess you could somewhat call her an antagonist in the Taiju Kim Ok-bin character. I think she does great. I think this is one of Park Chan Wook's best films. I would say it's in my top 3. I would say this, like Old Boy, this, and then maybe Lady Vengeance would be my top 3 Park Chan Wook films. I mean, I think the guy is great, and I'm always looking forward to what he's doing. I know he just made a new film now, and it's apparently out on Tubi from late last year, 2022, and I really want to see that. My friend Billy saw that, and he was a big fan, so I definitely want to watch that. And it's funny because Billy, who might watch this later, so shout out to him, he was telling me how he hates vampire movies. When I started Vampire Week at the beginning of the week, I said, I really want to do vampires this week. And he said, man, I don't know. I've never been into it. Like I never got into it. And I said, I mentioned this movie, and he said, that's one I actually like. So I'm happy that, even he not liking vampires, not being a big fan, he said, fuck it. I really like Thirst. So I'm happy that he liked this. To me, a perfect film. I love this. I would say a 10 out of 10 for me. I love Thirst. So highly recommend it. I don't know if I did ratings on all of them. I would say Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman would be a 5 out of 10. Thirst would be a 10 out of 10. And then Vampiros Lesbos, I'd go like a 7.5 out of 10. I think this is all of these movies are definitely worth watching at least once. All physical media editions, really, really good. I wish Thirst had some features, and I wish we could someday get the uncut version of Thirst. I know in South Korea, there's a version that's like 14 minutes longer, and apparently it's Park Chan Wook's preferred cut. Now, I don't know exactly what's different there. From what I'm told, half of it's dialogue scenes. The other half might have just been gore scenes, which is a shame they cut that out because this is a long film. This is don't be mistaken. This is 134 minutes. So that means the uncut version would be 148, 149 minutes ish, around there. That's a long movie, even, with that. But I don't know. I think Thirst is a really good one that I'd highly recommend. If I had to recommend one of these 3, it would definitely be that one. Let's see. I think we were here. The female vampire in Thirst reminds me of the main villain of Ravenous. They were both kind of depressed, but the blood made them stronger, and they didn't want to stop doing what they were doing. Yes, definitely, I would totally agree with that. Like it's one of those things where it enthralls her. It makes her want to just go out and kill innocent people. And of course, the priest, that's wrong. You can't do that, lady. Like, I love you, but stop doing this nonsense. And then, of course, he knows there's just no happy ending here, which is kind of poetic for their whole lives. Kubrick Lover, hey, Grande, welcome, Brian. Hope all is well with you, man. That Thirst sounds really good. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah, no, it's a great one. I don't know what streaming service this would be on. Like, I'm not sure. Maybe I could go here and see. Looks like it's on Prime Video for rent. And it doesn't look like it's anywhere else. Wow. Okay. So yeah, Prime Video or bust here. If you'd have to rent it for $4. I got the Blu-ray for $9. So I think the fucking Blu-ray is worth it. And especially if you're a vampire fan, I think it's worth a buy. I like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Gary Oldman and the female vampires are visually unbelievable to look at, but I don't like Keanu Reeves and Anthony Hopkins in it, who I usually like as an actor. I would say I like the 1992 Dracula. That's why I actually have the DVD of that somewhere. Definitely have the old school DVD of that. That's what I haven't watched in a long time. I'll tell you what, I want to do more vampire episodes. I'll definitely cover that one on a future Grande's Graveyard. Maybe we'll do like a Dracula, 3 different Draculas, like Dracula in the 30s, Dracula in the 70s, Dracula in the 90s. Like do something like that. Granted, there's so many fucking Dracula films. There's no way you could cover them all. Like Hammer Horror alone would have to have like 20 fucking Dracula movies. Like Hammer alone. The House of Drip Blood and the House of this and the House of that, and Peter Cushing and fucking Christopher Lee. Like that fucking Hammer alone would take all day and night to go through, and let alone Universal Monsters and Dracula and Dracula's daughter and things like that. I mean, you would literally be here for a fortnight talking about stuff. Vampire Night, I got to ask your must-watch vampire movies. Okay. So I went more obscure with the ones I reviewed here. Number 1 would be Fright Night. I think Fright Night is the quintessential vampire movie. I think it's arguably the greatest vampire movie. And it's the one that, like I said, I love movies that embrace the era that they're in. You know, like first and foremost, Vampiros Lesbos is so 1970s. It's distinctly 1970s. So you can't watch this and think of any other fucking time. Fright Night is that way with the 80s. It's so fucking 1980s to the point where I love it. Another one that I know I put on the poll that you had mentioned was The Lost Boys. Of course, Joel Schumacher and of course, you know, the amazing cast, Kiefer Sutherland and the 2 Corys, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, respectively, Jamie Gertz. I love the cast of Lost Boys. And I know that even though that one's more fantastical than it is horrific, like Fright Night's a horror movie, I would say Lost Boys, it has themes, but it's more fantastical and, you know, I don't know how to explain it. It's definitely more fantastical. That's the word I would use for it, if it's even a word. Lost Boys for sure. Dracula from 31 would be a slam dunk. You'd have to mention that one. I always say George Romero's Martin, and I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but to me, that is the most unique take that there's ever been on that genre. It really is. I mean, Romero's Martin is fucking great. And John Amplas in that role, he could have won an Oscar. I mean, it's that fucking good of a performance. It's so good as this young kid who believes he's an 84-year-old man and cutting women's wrists to stay alive, and his sexual frustrations and all of these things like that. And calling it on the radio, the Counts, calling it to Michael Gornick, who would go on to direct Creepshow 2 and be the director of photography for movies like Dawn of the Dead, Creepshow, and things like that. Calling him and pouring his heart out and saying, I'd love to have sex with someone who's awake, and I'd love to stop feeling the pain that I do. And, you know, I wish I could just find someone and find peace and all of these things. And his performance is fucking fantastic. I would say Martin would be another one. So that's 4. I guess we got to do 5, right? Then I guess you'd have to throw a Christopher Lee one in there, depending on which one, you know, because Christopher Lee played Dracula a lot. Let's be honest. I don't know what people's top one would be. Of course, that you could throw the Klaus Kinski one from, I think that would be what, 79 would be Klaus Kinski, the vampire special, I believe. That would be one of them. I would say Thirst. I would totally say this is in my top 10 favorite vampire movies of all time, for like no fucking question about it. So I would say those are the quintessential ones. Maybe I could be missing one. I'm trying to think so that I don't get fucking be rated on here. From Dusk Till Dawn, of course. That's what everyone knows, though. Like that's also, it's so much more than just a vampire film at the same time. Like, it's like a Western, it's an action film. You have fucking George Clooney, Harvey Keitel in there, Juliette Lewis. I mean, that movie is, I think it's so much more than just a vampire film at the same time, if that makes any sense. So I would say those for sure. But I'd love to hear yours too, Mateo. Isn't Bliss a vampire movie? I couldn't get into that because the rapid editing makes me kind of sick. I'll be honest, I haven't seen Bliss, so I couldn't tell you. I actually don't know. Maybe the editing is bad. I couldn't say. Let's see. Definitely will give Thirst a watch. Sounds like a masterpiece of a vampire film. It is. Vampire movies never really did it for me, but when I was very little, I had a recurring sleep paralysis nightmare where Nosferatu got closer and closer to me every time I closed my eyes. Wow. Now that is fucking horrific. That is actually the scariest thing ever. That is, wow. I'm glad that did not happen to me. It almost sounds like what we were talking about before of Vampiros Lesbos, instead of Soledad Miranda coming to you in your nightmares and you having sexual orgasms, instead Nosferatu was coming closer and closer to potentially kill you. That is fucking frightening, man. The original Nosferatu is a great classic with the unsettling performance by Max Schreck, of course, who they used his name in Batman Returns. Dracula 92 might be my favorite, and I find myself watching that movie the most. Okay, definitely. I think that's a good choice. I like Nosferatu style old school vampire films. I think that's a good, I think that's a great choice. I mean, Nosferatu is definitely like the first most notorious one. It's one that I actually would have to revisit. I actually have only seen the original Nosferatu, the silent 20s one only once, so I definitely would have to revisit that one. Catherine Bigelow, I think it's called Near Dark. I think it's called Near Dark. That one, iffy for me. I always thought it was a little bit overrated. Like, I don't mind it, but I don't think it's as great as everyone says. Toby Hooper's two vampire films. Oh, Salem's Lot would have to be in the top 10. I love Salem's Lot. It's a little long, but it's a great one. And Life Force, who could forget space vampires? Matilda May, the hottest vampire of all time, maybe. Looking forward to the new Last Voyage Demeter. Okay, let's see. Lost Boys, sorry, no worries at all. Fright Night is far down on my list because of the comedy aspect, and I like the more serious vampire movies, but it's a fun movie for what it is. Wow, that's surprising. Now, I can totally understand that, though, because it almost in a way is a kid's film, Fright Night. Like, I know it's not, but at the same time, it has that kind of children-like charm to it. If you know what I mean, like, it definitely has that kind of fun, adventurous feel towards the last act of it, where they're breaking the glass and Jerry Dandridge and the gargoyle and things flying around, special makeup effects. I love Fright. To me, Fright Night has got to be considered one of the best, but I totally understand if you're not a comedy horror guy, why that would turn you off. Now, I will say this too. These three we talked about tonight, there might be one laugh in any of these movies. Maybe Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, but there's not much fucking levity in any of these. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. If you don't want comedy, you definitely don't have it in any of those movies. I think I saw Vampiros Lesbos and thought it was kind of bland. Really? That's interesting. Story-wise, I could see. But like, her character, I think, is so good. And that whole monologue that I gave before when she's talking about how Dracula, converted her and she was being raped by men and it forever turned her on men, and how, for 200 years she's been lusting for love in all the wrong places. And then, of course, she gets one taste of this woman's blood and believes that she belongs to the inner circle and she will join the queen on her black wings. I mean, just so fucking good, man. Soledad Miranda was, I think, one of the greatest talents ever. Lost Boys is very heavy VHS rental back in the day, but lost a little for me nowadays. Really? Okay. That's interesting. I have a friend that had the cassette tape, the Lost Boys cassette tape, where back in my old car, which my original car, people will love this, horror fans will love this. My original car was Reggie the Reckless, right? I named my fucking car Reggie the Reckless, my first car I ever had. It was a 98 black Buick Century, aka it was a dog shit piece of shit car, but it was my piece of shit and I loved it. And it had a fucking cassette player where I took that and we played the Lost Boys theme in that car. And I don't know why, it's just one of those things from Lost Boys for some reason that always stands out in my mind as like the thing for it. I just pre-ordered the Second Sight Martin Blu-ray like 3 days ago. Can't wait to finally own that one. Dude, I adore it. And I can't lie to you, I'm very fucking disappointed again that we can't get a Region 1 release of that. I know it's for Richard P. Rubenstein, and he owns the rights. And I know they did like 4 different editions, right? They did a special edition 4K, they did a standard 4K, they did a standard Blu-ray, they did a special edition. Like they did like 4 different versions you could buy. I'm so sick of region locking. I don't have a region free player. I'm not fucking biting the bullet on that. I know people say I'm stubborn. Maybe I am, but like it's just insane. Like I'm not buying another player. I have a 4K player. It's fine. Like I'm fucking fine with it, man. But no, that movie's great and it deserves a special edition. I'm happy. The edition I have of Martin is like a VHS style DVD. Like it looks like a VHS transfer. It's a VHS glorified DVD of it. I have it somewhere over there. I bought it at a convention years ago, and that's my copy of Martin. It literally looks like a VHS when you watch it. It's incredible. It's a VHS disc. I kind of love it that way, but I would love to see a 4K of that movie because the fucking cinematography that Gornick does of the town in that movie, I don't know if it's not Monroeville, it might be Evansville, whichever part of Pittsburgh that's shot in, it's fucking amazing. Like it's so you could tell that town is just really shot, and you see all that stuff. But that's the classic Romero kind of style where all of his earlier films, at least the ones made in Pittsburgh, had that homemade feel to them. That one is homemade feeling. George Romero's Martin, there are days where that might be my favorite Romero film besides Dawn of the Dead. I know it was Romero's favorite. And crazy enough, some fucking mark found the extended version of Martin. So it's like, I think 2.5 hours, something like that. I think 2 hours and 40 minutes even. They found the extended cut of it and then tried to sell it. And someone from the Romero Foundation bought it. Greg Nicotero. I'm not supposed to say that because I could get in trouble, but I know who fucking bought it. It had to fucking be Greg Nicotero, let's be honest, because there's no fucking bigger Romero mark on this fucking planet than Greg Nicotero, let's be honest. He bought it for like 50 something K. And he has it in possession, but now it's going to have to go through legal battles against Rubenstein, Richard P. Rubenstein, who's a fucking piece of shit. And, you know, people call him Richard Rubenstein. I call him Dick Rubenstein because he's a fucking dick. And he's a piece of shit, selfish son of a bitch who I hope one day fucking releases the rights to Dawn of the Dead so they can do a proper 4K in the United States and they can do a proper 4K of fucking Martin in the United States. But he's such a big all right, if I get on there, I'll fucking freak out. So let's not go down that road. But fuck Richard P. Fuck Dick Rubenstein. Fucking hate him. The Herzog Nosferatu remake also has an excellent Count Orlok performance by Klaus Kinski. Yes, I mentioned that. That's a good one too. I like that one too. Grande, I have a copy of Martin though in a certain way, if you get what I'm saying, but I haven't watched it yet. Really? Okay. Well, I'd definitely be interested to hear what you think of it. Grande's Graveyard streams are slowly becoming my favorite shit to watch on YouTube now. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate the support. I love your channel as well, man. Love Dawn of the Dead, probably Romero's best film for me. Dude, yeah, Dawn of the Dead's the best for sure. Near Dark needs a new release that isn't a German media bar. Yeah, no, definitely. It deserves a better release too. Think we can all agree. Morby, oh no, not Jared Leto. Don't do this to me, Mernsey. Oh, Jesus. Fucking Morbius, man. That's a piece of shit. Matilda May is definitely the hottest vampire. I would say, yeah. I did a poll, or I did Soledad Miranda versus Isa Gonzalez versus Julie Carmen from Friday Night 2, who plays Jerry Dandridge's sister. And she was, I think all 3 of them are hot. I don't know. Isa Gonzalez is fucking beautiful, man. She plays the like Salma Hayek part on the From Dusk Till Dawn show. That's a fucking, they don't make women like that, man. That's fucking crazy how hot that woman is. And natural too, man. That's, wow. I would say she's got, Matilda May, I mean, I don't know. I should go on a Dusty Rhodes promo about Matilda. That sounds like someone Dusty Rhodes would cut a fucking promo on. Like if he left Sweet Sapphire. Like, let me tell you something, baby. Matilda May, all day long, if you will, is the space vampire gonna suck them Archangel blood, if you will, Cody. Everybody in the wild is trying to get Matilda May, Sweet Sapphire, and I got to push you to the side because I reserve the stratosphere for you and me. I mean, I fucking love Matilda May. I think sexuality is a big theme in vampire movies. Yes, and that's why I really love all 3 of these movies I talked about here tonight, because Vampiros Lesbos especially has the kind of erotic themes. You know, Thirst has sad erotic themes. And then, you know, the Paul Nashcy film definitely just hints at it. It's not going to go. It doesn't go there. The gloves aren't off. It's very much more like a safe fucking vampire film to watch. I like horror comedies, but they're my least favorite of horror genre. That's very cool. Matilda was a beauty, dude. God, I love fucking Matilda, man. Barbara Steele, wasn't she a vampire in Black Sabbath, or is it Black Sunday? That's Black Sunday. Gotta love Barbara Steele. And well, she's not. I don't think she's beautiful. She's one of those. She had a great presence as well. I actually think she's a fucking horrifying woman. I think she's fucking ugly. Like her eyes are fucking bugging out. Like if you had hit her, well, she's still, I think she's still alive. If you had hit fucking Barbara Steele in the back of the head, her fucking eyes would have popped out of the yard, man. She's fucking scary fucking woman. But I want to do the Black trilogy someday. Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, Blood and Black Lace. I definitely want to do that. A Bava Black trilogy episode. We'll definitely do that down the road. I don't have a region-free player, either Grande or a 4K player. I'm not going to double dip on my Blu-rays and some of my DVDs for that matter. I don't mind double dipping if I love the movie. But I'm not going to buy another fucking player to double dip. I think that's just a step too far. Region codes are stupid as hell, but a region free player is actually fairly cheap. LO, you are denying yourself, Grande. I know I am. I know. And listen, maybe I'll bite it one day. Maybe. If I do, I'm going to sell my current player, though. I'm not going to have two fucking players. I don't see a point of having two players. But I understand what you mean. I still haven't gotten the 4K setup yet because I simply don't have the room for all that. Yeah, I completely get it. Like, I have the soundbar and the subwoofer. And man, it creates for, especially this fucking Jess Franco film with the fucking sub. Holy shit. Like all that experimental music and when the show is going on and the strip show and fucking Soledad is doing her dance. Fuck me, man. That is what subwoofer is created for. But I don't have speaker room in here at all. Like if I fucking put speakers in here, I'd get shit on. Like there's no way. I don't have room for speakers. Like the whole sound system thing. Like I have a sound bar and a subwoofer, but that's about it. Grande, do you subscribe to Shudder, the horror streaming site, which has Joe Bob Briggs? Oh man, I love Joe Bob Briggs. Cool enough. I used to actually talk to him back in the day when I had Twitter. We would DM a lot. And like, he's an interesting guy, man. He's very interesting opinions. And I always love Joe Bob's commentaries on movies. Like, I don't know if anyone has the I Spit on Your Grave Blu-ray, the out of print one has the commentary from Joe Bob Briggs on it. I don't know. I know they just did a new 4K, I believe, of the original film and that piece of shit direct sequel from years later, I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu, which is a movie I literally couldn't even get through. But I know the Joe Bob Briggs commentary, if it's on there, it's one of my favorite commentaries of all time. I could listen to Joe Bob Briggs talk about fucking anything all day long. That is one of the most interesting human beings that there ever fucking was. I love Joe Bob. I don't have Shudder, though, to answer your question. I actually don't. I own so much physical media. There's no fucking point for me to have Shudder to me. Jokes aside, love Life Force, Pale Blood, The Blood Spider Bride is another goodie. Blade 2 rules. Oh, man. Blade 2 is fucking great. Like, I adore Blade 2. That's like one movie that doesn't get enough love. And I believe Guillermo del Toro fucking directed it. And you can see why. I mean, Blade, I like Blade 1 as well. Blade Trinity, best left unmentioned, right? You know, you have Jessica Biel, Ryan Reynolds, and fucking Triple H. You know, you definitely leave Blade Trinity in the fucking garbage. But Blade 2 is the best. And I love Wesley Snipes. I think Wesley Snipes is the fucking man. I adore him in those movies. Dick Rubenstein is truly an asshole. I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking that. I don't think there's this fucking soul that doesn't think that. Dick Rubenstein fucking sucks. Rich Rubenstein, yeah, he is. He's a fucking piece of shit. Fuck him. Forgot About Near Dark. That's a great flick. Bill Paxton. Rest in Paps, Bill Paxton. I love Bill Paxton. I am late to the stream. Have you talked about ankle biters yet? ATG NAT podcast is here. Welcome, my friend. Hope all is well. Yes, we've talked all things vampires tonight. I did 3 separate vampire reviews, and now we're just kind of talking all things loving about vampires. Oh, dude, Isa Gonzalez, that's a fucking top shelf woman right there. Grande, a friend of mine, has met Barbara Steele twice. I think she's in her 80s. Wow, that's crazy, man. Fucking A. Wow, Barbara's still kicking. Nice. Hell yeah, man. I'll tell you this. I had the Spit on Your Grave DVD. That's an awesome commentary. Love that one. But back to this. Barbara Steele did a really good horror movie, I want to say like around 10 years ago. And Heather Langenkamp's also in it from, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street fame. I think it's called The Butterfly Room. Awesome fucking movie that nobody talks about. I think Ray Wise is also in it. It's basically one of those movies where she's going crazy and fucking like killing people and like stuffing these little girls as like if they were like, butterfly. It's a weird film, but man, the Butterfly Room is one I really liked, and she was the star of the whole thing. One of the last movies I can remember seeing her in. She did a great job in that. Grande, I saw Joe Bob at the Alamo. Oh, really cool. Oh my God, you showed TCM. That's amazing. Now, you want to hear something fucking crazy that will blow your fucking mind. Joe Bob Briggs said the greatest horror movie of the 1990s was Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. I am not fucking kidding you. He has said that. He has defended that. I remember back in the day when I had Twitter, I straight up asked him, I'm like, of all of the horror movies made in 1990s, Dead Alive and fucking From Dusk Till Dawn and Scream, and, you know, there's Cemetery Man. There's so many great 1990s horror movies that don't get a lot of love. I said, of all the fucking 1990s horror movies, you really like The Next Generation, Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Matthew McConaughey the best? And he said, yes. And he said the acting he loved, the tone, all that stuff. And I was like, holy fucking shit, this is crazy. I wish I still had the conversation because people would not believe it. It might be buried in my photos, but I don't know. It's one of those where it just blows my mind. Blade 2, Del Toro directed the shit out of that film. Yes, and that's the film that really, I think, made him explode onto the mainstream, because then it was The Devil's Backbone and movies like that, and that kind of led up to Pan's Labyrinth, which made him the household name that he'll forever be. I mean, we love Guillermo del Toro. Been meaning to watch. They have on Netflix a fucking like anthology series that he did, where they take certain story, like they did Dreams in the Witch House, which is a Lovecraft story. I've got to see that. I've got the 4K of Blu-ray of I Spit in Your Grave because Joe Bob commentary, and I guess the reputation of the film. I don't know when I'll watch it. Wow, that's okay. So this commentary, it seems like you guys are familiar. That's good. I never got the appeal of Blade. The overproduced look of those movies makes me want to die. Okay. Bro, 2023 going to be so good. Okay, just found out there's going to be a Salem's Lot remake. Wow, let's hope. Let's fucking hope that it's not the one, like the one with fucking, what was his name? Oh my God, from fucking Saint Almost Fire. He did the Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe did the first remake. Oh shit. Oh shit. That's a bad one. Barbara Steele is in Fellini's 8.5, one of my favorite films of all time. But my favorite Fellini is La Dolce Vita. Sorry to digress here. Don't be sorry at all. It's an open chat. We actually finished the reviews like 25 minutes ago. This chat has been crazy. Yeah, but apparently Salem's Lot won't be as long as the original. Well, I don't think you can make a fucking 3-hour remake of that. Like, I don't know if you can do that. What makes that movie great though is Toby Hooper's version, is how fucking scary it is. Like, that is a true scary horror film. Like, that horror movie scares me to my fucking bone. The scene where fucking Jeffrey Lewis and his buddy, they're going down into the basement, that is one of the scariest sequences in any fucking horror movie. And of course, the splashing at the windows and the little vampire kid. I mean, that's a fucking, I think the original Salem's Lot can't really be topped, but I would say that it's hard to make a 3-hour version of it now, especially in today's day and age. I stopped buying DVDs, and after 4K showed up, I can't afford to keep buying stuff over and over. Ironically, I have started buying up my favorites on VHS, so I'm going backwards. Dude, that's fine. I do that from time to time. I saw at a fucking retro gaming store a VHS copy of the fucking Dark Half, and I was like, the Blu-ray's out of print? Fuck it, I'll buy the fucking VHS. I'm one of those. I'm weird like that. Like, if I see something and I know the DVD or Blu is out of print, and I see something cheap like that, bam, buy it. Who gives a fuck? I have the fucking VHS of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Fucking weird. Dawn of the Dead. I have a couple of Scream movies. I had the first 4 Hellraisers on VHS. I have a ton of VHS too, so you're not alone. I just like physical media. Like, I'm a big collector of it. And we live in an age now where like everybody fucking streams stuff. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know if Shudder would have this, but Shudder doesn't have fucking Vampiros Lesbos, do they? If they do, I'll take back the fucking criticism. But no, and it's even if they did, it's not as inviting as this. It just makes you want to fucking buy it. It's like, fuck, like the little slip window. I don't know. I'm weird like that. I just kind of like weird shit like that. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It definitely, we're in a minority. Darcy, the male girl, picked Ice Cream Man for Joe Bob's show, and that movie is god awful. Ice Cream Man with fucking Clint Howard, that one? Or yeah, that would have to be that one, right? Professor is here. Greetings and salutations. Welcome, my friend. Only like Pan's Labyrinth of Del Toro. Think he's sort of overrated. Really? Oh, man, I'd have to respectfully disagree. I love fucking Del Toro. Just got home from work. Speaking of Del Toro, how about Chronos? Yeah, that is. You know what? That fucking is. I think that was before Blade 2, but yeah, that's so crazy. I didn't even that one didn't come to mind, man. Maybe in a future episode, I'll do a Vampire Special number 2, and Kronos could be one of the movies. That's one I haven't ever talked about on Grande's Graveyard. Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities hit or miss, but I think it's worth everyone's time. So, okay, good. That's good to hear because it's going to be one I watch eventually. Del Toro's might be a good technical director, but it just doesn't work for me. Totally understand that. Wasn't there already a sale? There was, unfortunately. My most anticipated movies from this year are The New Evil Dead, Saw 10, but man, Last Voyage of the Demeter is going to be awesome. I just know it is. And you're sighing it. I have not seen the trailer or heard of Last Voyage of the Demeter, so I'm going to have to check that out. It's going to be really fucking good. Okay, I'm with it. I don't know. The Evil Dead trailer, should we talk about that? I mean, this has just become a chat show now. The chat is so fucking flowing right now. I guess I could give my brief thoughts on that fucking Evil Dead trailer. Okay, that remake, the remake from 2013, people seem to unanimously fucking love it. Like, that is a pretty well-liked remake. And it's for one single solitary reason. It's the gore. The gore and the fact that they didn't have an Ash character. Instead, he's not in it. It's just a girl going through withdrawal and whatever. And Fede Alvarez directed. He did Don't Breathe, and he's produced a piece of shit Texas Chainsaw reboot, which is fucking better left wiping your ass with. Now, my thing is this. Evil Dead 1 and 2, and I'll exclude Army of Darkness, even though I love Army of Darkness. I think it's a different type of movie than Evil Dead 1 and 2, if that makes any sense. It's way more comedic, even though Evil Dead 2 is comedic. The thing with the original Evil Dead is the beauty of creativity and what Sam Raimi did with the camera and what Sam Raimi did with some of the sequences and using every single type of filming that you could do. Stop motion animation, zooms in through glass, zooms in through out a door, breaking a door down, a light bulb filling up with blood. It was the creativity to me that made the original Evil Dead the great classic horror movie that it is. It honestly might be the greatest independent horror movie ever made. When you really sit down and pick apart independent horror, the original Evil Dead has got to be considered the top. Like, even if you have one you like more, I don't see how you can fucking pick a different one. Like, it's the fucking gold standard. It really is. It's the gold standard of horror independent cinema. Is the original Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2 is a remake with a lot of comedy, much more gore. Bruce Campbell really getting to dial it up to 20 and being Bruce Campbell and the laughing animals and Baba Joe! I mean, Evil Dead 2 is arguably the greatest horror comedy. It might be the gold standard of horror comedies. That's how good Evil Dead 1 and 2 is. This new remake, it kept the gore. It kept the over-the-top gore, but where and what creativity did it really bring to the table like those first two movies? And then this new trailer for Evil Dead Rise, okay, we're in an apartment, we're ripping off some of the camera techniques that are in the first movie, the pushing in, the camera kind of being a character and chasing, the camera being an antagonist, if you will. Okay, like, all right, I get it, I see it, whatever. Is what it is, kind of lame in my opinion, not something that is going to be a make or break. But at the same time, I don't know, like, I definitely think that and this new one miss out on the creativity, and it's one of those things where it's like I kind of in the middle of the road. I would see it, I probably will see it. It's not like I have a vendetta against it like I do with the new Scream, which it makes me want to pull my hair out that they're going to make more Scream movies. But I mean, it is what it is. And then Saw 10, I mean, at this fucking point, I don't know. Like, the Chris Rock one, whatever. The Jigsaw one is the worst for sure. I don't know. I think I'm fucking done with Saw, to be honest with you. Well, apparently pretended that we never heard Hard and Macabre. Exorcist Remake 2, really? Physical media for life. Hell fucking yeah, I agree with that. I think Shudder. Really? That's fucking crazy. I did not think that. Clint Howard, right? Physical media forever. Fuck yes. Love it. Kronos is overlooked and underrated. I agree completely. Mimic is incredibly underrated film from Del Toro. Dude, yeah, Del Toro's done so many good ones. Yeah, they did. It's too long. Like a 2-minute, 40-second trailer. I don't know, man. I think they have developed a modern formula for Evil Dead that they think will work, book plus possessions. But here's the thing, though. It's like that stuff too. But like the main thing people came away with that remake was the gore. Like everyone came to me and said, "Did you see the gore in that movie?" You didn't hear how scary it was, how effective it was, how creative it was. And it's like, yeah, we have a lot of films right now being sold on gore value, right? The Terrifier movies are fucking selling like hotcakes based on Art the Clown and gore. That's what's fucking selling those movies. There's nothing else there to sell that movie, to sell those movies, than the fucking gore. It's simple as simple can be. Blood, blood, you guessed it, more fucking blood. If that's the case with, I don't know. Like, I just don't think Evil Dead was always about gore. Like, it was more about Sam Raimi just busting into the business and just, I don't know, kind of kicking the door in alongside with the fucking camera. But I don't know. I feel like people, if they want to just see gore, they're going to be pleased, I think. Got late, but I love Vampire Lovers with Ingrid Pitt, Life Force, and Matilda May, and Underworld because the Cape baking sale. I haven't had a thing for vampire chicks. Completely understand. All 3 seasons of Ash vs. the Evil Dead were better than the 2013 remake. I would agree with that completely. Evil Dead over. Well, I would say I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre much more than Evil Dead. But I think what I mean more is like that's the one that is like the gold standard. Like it probably is the most in it that people kind of rip off and take from. I don't know. That's what I would say. I don't know. I would say Evil Dead is not nearly as good as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre it would be my number 2 favorite movie, number 2 or 3. It'd be Dawn of the Dead, Clockwork Orange, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, that's how great the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. But I don't know. I would say that even Evil Dead would be more of a gold standard. I don't know. That would be an interesting poll. Like, but I think people would read it and go, "Oh, which one do I like more?" No, like the question would be, which one is more like important to indie horror? I would be really curious to know. But you guys can let me know. Evil Dead 2 was better. I think the budget helped make that film better. Yes, and the fact that he definitely had more to work with and it's more fun. It's more quickly paced. The first one is straight up horror movie. The second one's horror comedy too. I think that lightening the tone, that's a real challenge here, picking one over the other. Yeah, I agree. It's hard. I would say TCM though, for me. I would say TCM slam dunk. But as far as which one was more important to independent horror, I actually would lean towards Evil Dead. I really, really would. Evil Dead Rise looks like a lesser version of Lamberto Bava's Demons 2. Absolutely. Going back to this comment and just thinking about it more, you look at, I think where I'd lean towards Evil Dead more is also if you look at the time period that movie came out. It came out in 1981. That was the year of the slasher where My Bloody Valentine, The Prowler, The Burning, Madman was 82, Halloween 2, Friday the 13th 2, fucking Prank, so many fucking slasher movies. It almost felt like there was one every weekend. Night School, Graduation Day, which might have been later, but still, 1981 had a ton of fucking slasher movies, and they took over the kind of horror scene at that time. That was the big fad in 1981. Whereas Sam Raimi went against that grain and makes a movie like Evil Dead and kind of just turned the genre on its head, because that is, for most people, that's the number one video nasty. For most people, that's one of the most recognizable independent horror movies. And it's far more remembered than any of those movies I just mentioned, whether it be, granted, maybe the big franchise sequels, Halloween 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, are more remembered. But the rest of those movies I listed, they don't hold a candle to an Evil Dead, no matter how good or bad or ugly they are. Evil Dead Rise looks like a lesser version of Lamberto. Yeah, definitely. Pop quiz: Hot Shots versus battle between Lugosi Dracula, Lee Dracula, Oldman Dracula. Who wins? I go with Lugosi. I think Lugosi wins. That's a good one, though. Like Dawn of the Dead was way better than Night of the Living Dead. I definitely agree with that. I think Dawn of the Dead is way better. Probably Oldman. Grande streams are the best, and he doesn't ask for people's money. Oh, fuck. You throw a rock and you hit a fucking stream with people asking for money. Give me your money. Give me your super chats. Oh, on Patreon, all right, I don't mean this in particular about anybody, but this fucking pisses me off. They had Patreon tiers where you can fucking pay and they'll put your name in the credits. What the fuck? If you give me $3 a month, bro, I'll put your name at the end of my video. How cool am I? That's fucking robbery. Fuck that shit. A better story and well-drawn characters are better than gore to me, unless if you can work the gore constructively into the film instead of using it as a gimmick. But it's really used as a gimmick now, you know? Like, I don't know. It's hard, man. That's hard if you have to, like, I would say Dawn of the Dead would be a movie that uses it not as a gimmick, but it just uses it to use it. You know, there's so much more to Dawn of the Dead, but there's a lot of movies that do use it as a gimmick. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just for Evil Dead, I'd expect more. Scott Spiegel should direct an Evil Dead movie. I would be all for that. Love Scott Spiegel. Not a big gore guy. Saw Hostel, Hills Have Eyes remake sent me running back to the 70s and 80s. Dude, me too. Granted, I like the first Saw. And it's not that gory. Like, the first Saw has a good story, good characters, good pacing, good mystery. I love the first Saw. The morality of, you know, he doesn't really kill people. He finds ways for his victims to kill himself. The first one's really good. Hostel, I think, is a piece of shit. The Hills Have Eyes remake. This is where I might hit some nerves. I like the film. I don't think it's a bad remake. In fact, I think Alex Aja did a good job. I don't think it's half as good as the original. I don't think it's even in the same fucking ballpark as that original movie. It is nothing compared to Michael Berryman, who had real fucking deformity, as opposed to casting actors and putting prosthetics on them to make them look like they have deformities, whether it be Michael Bailey Smith or Robert Joy, which are fine actors, but it's just not the fucking same. And even the fucking, I hate in that remake where the old man sets them up. Oh, take the detour. Fuck that shit. Stay on the main road. You hear me? Stay on the main road. Love that. And the Mercury. Do you have Mercury? This here's Mars. I mean, that's fucking, you can't beat that movie. That remake has none of that. It has no personality. Yes, it has a third act that's entertaining and fun and heroic. I like the third act. I think the gore is good in the film. The RV sequence is effective like it is in the original film. However, The Hills Have Eyes was 1970s grindhouse drive-in, gritty fucking horror, and I love it. And you can't remake that because that's lightning in a bottle, my friend. That's a nice American family that didn't want to kill, but they didn't want to die. The greatest tagline in horror history. I don't think you can top I fucking love the original Hills Have Eyes. That's why I always hear people say, oh, the remake, that's when they got better. Fuck that shit. I don't agree. Although I do think the remake is a fine film. So I don't know. Just had to let that passion of the original get out there. Torture porn, I should say. Yeah, no, fuck torture porn. I personally think 1981 was the best. Dude, I couldn't disagree with that. 81 is a fucking fantastic year for horror. I mean, I would say 85 would be my personal favorite. Like, I think 85 is probably the most well-rounded year. You know, and I did a show with I Am the Lysord West where we talked about 1985 horror movies, Reanimator and Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead. Those are movies all within like the zombie kind of window, but they're all completely different. I mean, I love 1985, Cat's Eye. There's so many good 1985 movies, but I think 81 would be a very close second, if not best. And I would say 78 would be another really, really good one. Grande, do I buy a lot of Vinegar Syndrome films? And if so, what is your take on their label? Well, it's funny. I did talk about this one, which is a Vinegar Syndrome label, The Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, which I will say this. Vinegar Syndrome has a great knack for putting great, extensive, beautiful artwork and special editions on movies that are generally average to below average. It's the truth. And I am a absolute guilty party of sometimes dipping on movies that are about 5 out of 10 and paying like they're a fucking 10 out of 10 for a cool special edition slip or cool special edition reverse box cover art. I'm that kind of nerd like that, but that's the thing, man. It's like one of the only things I spend money on. So I personally like Severin better. I think Severin releases more stuff I'm a fan of. Like, I like their documentaries a lot. I love the Video Nasties one. I loved the Tales of the Uncanny, which was discussing anthology horror. I really liked that. I like Severin better, but I don't think you could deny that Vinegar Syndrome packages their stuff much better. Like, it's very much more flashy and pretty looking, if you will. Like, they come out with some really beautiful looking special editions. And whether you like the movies or not, whether you like them or not, I would say that they do a good job in what they do, and they know how to take your money. Now, I will say this. They are overpriced. They're definitely overpriced. There's no reason you should have had to pay $40+ for fucking Swayze and Roadhouse. And I love the Sways. I love Patrick Swayze. I love Ghost. I love fucking Hugs and Kisses, Julie Newmar, whatever the fuck that movie was called. Roadhouse. I love the Sways. Love them. $40 for that movie. That's crazy. I love Roadhouse, but that's too much fucking money. It is. It just is. But Severin's guilty of that too. Why was the Four Flies in Grey Velvet $50? That's crazy. That's crazy. I just think it's absurd. And I'll be honest, I at conventions have met people at the Vinegar Syndrome tables. I found them to be a lot less nice than I would say some other companies. And that's coming from someone who I don't have a dog in a fight, right? Like I don't get freebies from any of these. So the thing here too is some of these people on YouTube, they'll actually get screeners or they'll get this sent like, hey, Grande, you'll give me a positive review. We'll send you a free copy. And that's what they fucking do. And you don't get, a rational, valid, truthful statement from these people that review this stuff. And that's not fair because if you can't be fucking unbiased, I don't think I want to watch your shit because I know what they're doing. They're fucking, okay, I'll give you a free 4K. You're going to put it over and people will buy it. And they're basically using you as a free marketing thing and you get a free fucking 4K out of it. Big fucking whoop. I think that the whole thing that happened with them, and I believe it was Synapse, and I love Synapse. I think Synapse is great. I wish they came out with a little bit more. I would just say I love Don May Jr., even though, again, I don't know if he's the most friendly motherfucker in the world either. But, again, I think he's a lot nicer than maybe some of the people with Vinegar Syndrome. I know that there was the whole fucking thing, and it was with the Thriller They Call Her One Eye release, which I don't know if people are familiar with the story. I could briefly tell it. Basically, what happened was both of them had rights to distribute that film at the same time. And Don May over at Synapse sold fucking They Call Her One Eye, Thriller, Cruel Picture, with Frigga, and a great, great revenge exploitation film, Norwegian exploitation. Actually, no, Swedish exploitation film where, Frigga, she's the one-eye hooker with a heart of gold and gets her revenge on these kind of heroin dealers or whatever the fuck. Great movie. I love it. They released a $20 Blu-ray edition, Synapse did. And then Vinegar Syndrome makes this fucking bizarre post saying, don't fucking buy the inferior version. We're going to come out with a 4K 8 months from now, whatever the fuck. That's fucked up. Don May got a fucking good print. He always has good prints. If you don't believe me, if you have the Suspiria Blu-ray or 4K, tell me that's a fucking bad print. That's the greatest Blu-ray/4K ever fucking made, is that Synapse release of Suspiria. There's no convincing me otherwise. I don't think there's a fucking movie on Blu-ray or 4K or high definition that looks better than that does. So right then and there, your inferior argument is bullshit. You were just fucking mad because he sold them like hotcakes. He sold them for cheaper. He didn't sell them on 4K like you did. And then you turned around and charged a lot more. Now, I'll be guilty. I bought the fucking Vinegar Syndrome version. But my heart went to Synapse and Don May. I felt fucking bad for doing so. But I'm a mark for that film. I wanted the special edition. So, you see, I picked the wrong side here, and I spent more money here. I actually didn't spend any money at all because good AJ Zetro gave me a fucking gift card. Otherwise, though, if I didn't have a gift card, I'm pretty sure I would have went with Synapse and Don May. So, I don't know. I just think, some of these guys, they could be nicer, and I definitely don't think sometimes that they're cool with the competition. Like, it's actually kind of sad how bad the business can be as compared to the show. So I don't know. I gave a really, really, really unnecessarily long answer. I apologize. Let me go back. I'm so sorry. Final Exam was 81. Yes, it was 81. That's the one where it's like Animal House. It's like the killer just shows up and is he wearing a baseball hat, or was that the fucking Prom Night remake? I don't know. Those two movies run together for me. Final Exam was 81. Everyone hates that movie, but I could find like 50 other movies that are much worse. I don't know if this was 81, but I dare to say I think this movie I'm about to say is the worst slasher movie of all time. And I bet you almost, as hardcore as y'all are, if y'all have seen or heard of this, I'd be astonished. Look for a movie called Terror on Tour. It might have been 1980. That might be the worst slasher movie ever made. Final Exam is hated. Oh, dude, yeah, it's super hated. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of it either. I don't know if I hate it, but it's not a good movie by any means. Everyone I ever hear talk about Final Exam will always say it's awful and never hear positive stuff. No, that's true. That is not a liked movie. Oh, I just remember Ingmar Bergman did a film called Hour of the Wolf that touched upon vampire themes, like things with Max von Sydow's flesh being bit into. And if memory serves me correctly, they walk into a room upside down. That's awesome. Haven't seen it in a long time. Okay. Toby Hooper's The Funhouse is an 81 slasher. Oh, I love that movie, man. The anamorphic wine leads, the way that he shot that and the colors. And that's a really good one. That creature in The Funhouse is amazing. Yeah, Gunther to see. And if you closely look at him, you can see that his head was a process of splitting. Yes, exactly. I love that. Grande, I love Criterion. I love Criterion too. I've been buying them since 2001. I have 500 to 600 to 700 of them. Wow. I lost count. Arrow is pretty. I would say Arrow is my favorite of all the Blu-ray companies. Arrow for sure. That's amazing, Kubrick. Yeah, that is fucking amazing. Ryan is here. Ryan's yo brother just got home from seeing Infinity Pool, and that shit was wild. Hell yeah, man. I've heard nothing but good things. I believe Mia Goth is in that. She's really, really popular right now. Totally understandable. My first experience with Vinegar Syndrome, first thing I ever bought was Night Train to Terror, and this was before they even had slipcovers. Dude, that movie is wonderfully bad with God and the Devil and the Night Train to Terror and the 80s music. I fucking have a fun time with that movie, but that's an older one. That Christmas Evil. Vinegar Syndrome used to be a porn company. Like they were hardcore porn only. And if you look in their back catalog, it's all like porn. So, I mean, it is what it is. I've never been as big on them as I am with Severance, Synapse, Arrow. I would put them over Shout Factory because I think Shout Factory, business-wise, are the shittiest people. That whole Nightbreed debacle where they accidentally sent the special editions to certain people and then had the nerve to send boxes out for people to return them. If you fucking accidentally ship me the special edition, that's it. I'm keeping it. I would have took a shit in the fucking box and sent that back to them. Go open that shit, motherfucker. Ugh, that Blu-ray from Synapse Films that's what Blu-ray is made for, is Blu-rays like that. My Night Train to Terror Blu-ray just wouldn't work. Oh my God, really? Oh, that's really cool. I did not know that. So that's okay. Another reason we'll put them over Shout. Because Shout would never do that. Shout would be, sir, okay, we're gonna inspect it and we'll give you a $5 credit if so. And you're fucked with it. They fucking suck. They're a bunch of cheap assholes. I hate them. VS has my heart. I love a lot of trash, and they put in some exceptional cheese. Dude, no, don't get me wrong. I love VS too. I just am not as big a mark for them as most people. Like I would say I buy more from Severin. I buy more from Arrow. I like blind buying Arrow way better than I do VS. Like I blind buyed a VS recently and fuck, I regretted it. It was some piece of shit movie called Limbo. And I fucking really regretted the 50 minutes of my life I spent watching that movie. I double and triple dip on movies, so do I. But I can't afford to start getting 4Ks. Yeah, that quadruple dip. 4K, 4K, 4 times dipping. There are way many movies on DVD, Blu-ray. I don't know that I'd rather get first. I think that's a good mentality to have, man. I would stick with that too. It's not good to double dip that much. Grande, I usually just buy Criterions during the Barnes and Nobles. Oh yeah, that's what everybody does. I depleted my bank accounts with Arrow, Severin, and Vinegar Syndrome sales last year. Dude, I do the same. We all, physical media collectors. Well, dude, I tell the truth. Shout Factory, behind the scenes, they're not very good people. That's fucking truth. But yeah, no, ladies and gents, this has been quite a conversation. I finally caught up to the chat. Last question, then I'll shut up. No worries. We're going to wrap this up anyway. Last question, then I'll shut up. Any interest in knock at the cabin door? Great show. Thank you, man. I'll be honest with you. This is, and I'm not that I'm not honest always. If it wasn't the director and writer that is attached to it, I would be, because I think the trailer is quite good. And I've never been a big Batista guy, but it's very interesting to see fucking Rupert Grint, aka Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter movies. He's going to be one of the antagonists. I think the trailer looks okay, but have I not learned my lesson from M. Night Shyamalan? Like, have I not learned my lesson from Avatar: The Last Airbender? Have I not learned my lesson from The Happening with fucking Mark Wahlberg playing a fucking scientist with Zoe Deschanel in there? Have I not learned my lesson from fucking The Visit? Like, M. Night Shyamalan has made so many fucking hilariously, terribly bad movies that you have to kind of learn your lesson after a while and be like, dude, even though it's marketed and it looks good, I hesitate because of who it is. You just have to me. And you know it's going to have some kind of M. Night Shyamalan twist ending there. And you just, oh God, I don't know. To be honest, if I didn't know it was M. Night Shyamalan, the answer would be yes, unbiasedly. Because it is M. Night Shyamalan, I have sort of a bias where I say I fucking don't trust him. So I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I read the book. No way the movie goes that route. Okay, very cool. M. Night Shyamalan only made one good movie that I've seen. That's The Village, which I know you're in the minority. Well, Sixth Sense is what most people say. I actually think Unbreakable is his best movie with Sam Jackson, Bruce Willis. I like that, but the rest, man, most of the rest is for the fucking birds. Let's be honest. But everyone, this has been the Vampire Special. I hope we all had our crosses, our fucking garlic out. If you have not seen any of these three movies, totally go out and watch them. I really, really enjoy all these movies that I talked about: Vampiros Lesbos, the Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, and of course, lastly, Thirst. Really, really liked all three of these movies, and movies that I think people should definitely go out and seek. And if you have seen them and are catching the replay of this, let me know down below. Let me know in the comments, what you guys think. This was a really fun show as always, and I enjoyed talking to the chat because usually it's review chat, but we got a good hour of the chat, so I appreciate that for sure. So everyone, thank you so much. Let's see. Great stream again, Grande. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate all your support. Vampiros Lesbos on the watch list. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mernsey, for all your support as well. I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely enjoyed the stream, and the chat was awesome. Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words and saying that I'm one of the best shows. That's humbling. Have a good night, man. You too, Ryan. Thank you. You rock, Grande. Awesome episode. Dude, Mernsey, thank you so much, man. You guys rule. Have a fun night, everyone. Everyone, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, safe, happy, healthy weekend. Cheers. Be safe. And we will catch you next time only on The Graveyard. Too sweet. Peace. And we'll catch you next time.